I was standing in my kitchen carefully stirring the cranberry sauce recipe my grandmother had passed down 3 generations. The sweet aroma filled my apartment as I imagined tomorrow's Thanksgiving dinner. After 2 years of living back in Portland, this would be my first holiday, truly feeling like I belonged with my family again. The phone rang, interrupting my cooking reverie. Mom's voice came through cold and distant, nothing like the warmth I expected. Her words hit me like a slap across the face. "You are not welcome this Thanksgiving, Lauren." The wooden spoon slipped from my fingers, cranberry sauce splattering across my kitchen floor like drops of blood. Why was she saying this? Before I tell you how this phone call changed everything and led to me cutting off $10,200 in support, let me know in the comments where you are watching from. Hit that like button if you have ever felt rejected by family, and subscribe because this story has a twist you will not see coming. Now, let me take you back to how I ended up in this nightmare. To understand why that phone call devastated me so completely, you need to know about my family dynamics. I am Lauren, 28 years old, a software developer, who thought she had finally found her place in the world. 2 years ago, I made the decision to leave my thriving career in Seattle and move back to Portland, specifically to be closer to my family. I wanted to build those relationships I felt I'd missed while focusing on my career. My family consists of my mother, Martha, who is 58, my older sister, Stephanie, 31, her husband, Kevin, and their 2 children, Emma, 8, and Michael, 6. Our father passed away 5 years ago, leaving behind the family home for Mom, but unfortunately, no life insurance to help maintain it. The house had been our childhood sanctuary, but without Dad's income, it was becoming a financial burden. Growing up, Stephanie had always been the golden child. While I buried myself in books and computer programming, earning straight A's and scholarships, Mom would gush about how beautiful Stephanie was, how she would make such a wonderful wife and mother someday. When I graduated summa cum laude with my computer science degree, Mom's first question was not about my achievements, but when I planned to settle down and give her more grandchildren. It stung, but I told myself she just wanted me to be happy. Stephanie had dropped out of college at 22 to marry Kevin, and they had been living in Mom's house ever since. Kevin worked part-time jobs here and there, never quite finding stable employment, while Stephanie stayed home with the children. I understood the challenges of raising kids, but what bothered me was how they seemed to make no effort toward independence. The house Dad left us was showing its age. The heating system needed constant repairs, the plumbing had issues, and the roof leaked during heavy Portland rains. Mom's Social Security check covered basic groceries and some utilities, but there was never enough for unexpected repairs or improvements. 18 months ago, everything changed when their heating system completely broke down in the middle of a brutal Oregon winter. Mom called me in tears, saying the repair estimate was $1,200 and she did not know what to do. The house was freezing and Emma had started developing a cough. I did not hesitate to transfer the money immediately. It was just one time, I told myself. But one time became 2, then 3, then a monthly expectation. When the electricity was about to be shut off, I paid the $340 bill. When the water heater died, I covered the replacement. Gradually, I found myself responsible for keeping the utilities running in a house where 3 other adults lived. Over those 18 months, the numbers added up faster than I had realized. I was paying an average of $566 every month to keep that house functioning. The electricity bills alone totaled $2,800. Gas utilities came to $1,900. Water and sewer added up to $1,100. I had even taken over their internet and cable bills, another $1,400. Then there were the emergency repairs, the plumbing issues that flooded the basement, the roof patches totaling $2,500. I even paid $500 when Stephanie's car needed emergency transmission work. The total was $10,200. More than $10,000 of my hard-earned money paid quietly without fanfare, because I thought I was helping my family stay afloat. But here is what really got to me. Stephanie had been telling everyone, including Mom, that she was the one paying all these bills. She would post on social media about how hard it was managing household expenses, accepting sympathy from friends who praised her for being such a responsible daughter and mother. Meanwhile, I was eating ramen noodles 3 nights a week to make sure I had enough money in my budget to cover their monthly bills. I had postponed my own vacation plans, delayed buying a new car, even though mine was developing problems, all so my family could live comfortably. That phone call 3 days before Thanksgiving was about to shatter everything I thought I knew about my place in this family. Mom's voice was different, colder than I had ever heard it directed at me. "Lauren, you are not welcome this Thanksgiving. she said without any preamble. The words felt like ice water in my veins. I stood there in my kitchen, cranberry sauce still dripping from the spoon onto the floor, unable to process what I was hearing. "What do you mean I am not welcome?" I asked, my voice barely above a whisper. This had to be some kind of misunderstanding. We had been planning this dinner for weeks. I had bought special ingredients, taken time off work, cleared my entire weekend. Stephanie needs space for her family this year. Mom explained, her tone suggesting this was perfectly reasonable. She has been doing so much for this house, and she deserves to have a peaceful holiday with her children and husband. "You just visit sometimes, Lauren. Stephanie lives this every day." The accusation hit me like a physical blow. "I just visit sometimes." I had been single-handedly keeping their utilities running for 18 months. But what shocked me even more was Mom's next statement. "Stephanie told me how much she has been struggling to pay all these household bills, while you just come by occasionally to check on us. She is doing such a good job managing everything financial, and I think she deserves recognition for that." My mouth fell open. Stephanie had been taking credit for paying bills that I had been covering. All those months when I transferred money, when I received the utility company confirmations, when I watched my bank account decrease by hundreds of dollars every month. Stephanie had been telling Mom that she was the one making those payments. "Mom, I've been paying for everything for 18 months, I said, my voice shaking with disbelief. "I have paid every single utility bill, every repair, even Stephanie's car emergency. I have the bank statements to prove it." "Lauren, that is not true," Mom responded sharply. "Stephanie would not lie to me about something like that. She shows me her budgeting and how hard she works to manage everything." "I think you are confused about your contributions." I was not confused. I was devastated. Not only was I being excluded from Thanksgiving, but my own mother was calling me a liar about the financial support I had been providing. "I am driving over there right now," I told her. "We are going to sort this out face to face." The 45-minute drive to Mom's house felt like the longest journey of my life. My hands shook on the steering wheel as I tried to process the betrayal. How long had Stephanie been taking credit for my payments? How many family conversations had happened where my contributions were dismissed, while Stephanie was praised for her financial responsibility? When I arrived, I could see through the living room window that it was a picture-perfect family scene. Stephanie was on the couch with Emma reading a book together. Kevin was helping Michael with what looked like a school project at the dining room table. Mom was in her favorite chair, smiling as she watched her daughter's family. It was exactly the kind of warm, cozy scene I had been supporting financially, but from which I was now being excluded. I knocked rather than using my key, since apparently I was no longer considered family enough to enter freely. Stephanie answered the door, and I could see a flicker of panic cross her face when she saw me. "Lauren, what brings you by?" she asked with forced cheerfulness, but her voice had a nervous edge. "I think you know exactly why I'm here," I replied, stepping past her into the living room where Mom was sitting. I pulled out my phone and opened my banking app, then spread printed copies of 18 months of bank statements across Mom's coffee table. Every electronic payment to Portland General Electric was highlighted in yellow. Every transfer to the gas company was marked in green. Every payment to the City Water Bureau was circled in red. "Mom," I said quietly, "these are my bank records. Every single utility payment for the past 18 months has come from my account. Here are the confirmation emails from the utility companies. Here are the receipts from every repair I paid for." Stephanie's face was turning bright red, but she tried to maintain her composure. "I was going to pay you back for those," she said defensively. "I just have not had the chance yet." "Pay me back?" I asked incredulously. "Mom, did you hear that Stephanie just admitted that I have been paying these bills, but she told you that she was paying them herself?" Mom looked at the bank statements, her face confused and uncomfortable. She clearly did not want to believe that Stephanie had been lying to her for over a year. "Well," Mom said slowly, "I am sure Stephanie had good intentions. Families help each other out. Maybe there was just some miscommunication about who was paying what. But it was not miscommunication, and Kevin knew it." He had been sitting quietly at the dining room table, but I could see from his expression that he was fully aware of where their bill money had been coming from. He had the decency to look ashamed. Stephanie, however, was doubling down on her defensive approach. "Lauren, you have always been dramatic about everything," she said, her voice getting louder. "You make good money in tech. You do not understand what it is like to struggle with kids and household expenses like we do." Then she said something that cut deeper than anything else. "You always think you are better than us because you have that fancy job and live alone without responsibilities. Mom does not need your money. We can handle our own bills just fine." Standing in that living room surrounded by the receipts of my own financial sacrifice, while being told I was unwelcome and unnecessary, something shifted inside me. I looked around the room with new eyes. There was a brand new 75-inch television mounted on the wall that I definitely had not been there during my last visit. Emma was playing with an expensive tablet, and I could see several new gaming devices scattered around the entertainment center. I realized that while I'd been eating ramen noodles and postponing my own purchases to cover their utility bills, Stephanie and Kevin had been using their own money, whatever Kevin managed to earn from his part-time work, plus probably Mom's Social Security contributions to buy luxury items. They had been living off my financial support while spending their own income on entertainment and gifts. The clarity hit me like a lightning bolt. I had not been helping my family through a temporary rough patch. I had been enabling them to live beyond their means while being lied to and now rejected for my efforts. I took a deep breath and looked directly at Mom. "Fine," I said in the calmest voice I could manage. "If I'm not welcome at Thanksgiving and if Stephanie can handle all the bills as she claims, then you will not mind me stopping my financial support effective immediately." Mom and Stephanie exchanged glances, and I could see they thought I was bluffing. "We do not need your money anyway," Stephanie said with a dismissive wave. "We have been managing just fine." "Great," I responded. "Then you will not miss it." I pulled out my phone right there in their living room and started making calls. The first call was to Portland General Electric. "Yes, this is Lauren, account holder for service at this address," I said, giving them Mom's street address. "I need to cancel my automatic payment arrangement and transfer the account back to the property owner's name effective immediately." "Lauren, what are you doing?" Mom asked, but I held up my hand to indicate I was still on the phone. Next, I called the gas company. Same process, same transfer of responsibility. Then the water bureau. Then the internet provider. One by one, I systematically removed myself from every utility account I had been paying for. Stephanie was staring at me with growing alarm. "You cannot just cut us off like that," she exclaimed. "Watch me," I replied, dialing the next number. When I finished the last call, I turned to face them. "Your first bills in your own names will arrive next week," I announced. "The amounts should be familiar to you since Stephanie has been managing these expenses so well for the past 18 months. Kevin finally spoke up. "Maybe we should all sit down and talk about this like adults," he said quietly. But I was done talking. "I have been an adult this entire time, Kevin. I have been the only adult in this situation. I have been covering $566 every month in bills for a house where I do not even live, while being told I am just a visitor who occasionally stops by." I pulled out a printed spreadsheet I had prepared months ago when I first started tracking my family expenses. This paper showed every payment, every date, every confirmation number. $10,200 over 18 months, I said, placing it on the coffee table next to the bank statements. "That is my entire grocery and gas budget every single month for a year and a half." Stephanie's face had gone pale. She was starting to realize that I had detailed records of everything and her lies were completely exposed. But instead of apologizing, she went on the attack. "You are destroying this family over money," she shouted. "How can you be so selfish with your own sister and her children?" "No, Stephanie, I am not destroying anything over money. You destroyed my trust with lies. You have been taking credit for my financial support while talking badly about my contributions to our mother. That is what is destroying this family." Mom tried to interject. "Lauren, honey, Stephanie has children to think about. Maybe you could just help out a little longer while they figure things out." The word maybe broke something inside me. Maybe I could continue funding their lifestyle while being excluded from family events. Maybe I could keep paying their bills while listening to lectures about my selfishness. And I had a family I thought cared about me, I said quietly. But I was wrong about that was not. I, Emma, who had been listening to the adult argument with increasing distress, started crying. "Why is everyone yelling? Why is Aunt Lauren upset?" she asked through her tears. The sound of my niece crying because of the tension I was creating made me feel terrible. But I also realized that this confrontation was long overdue. These children needed to understand that money does not appear magically, and their parents needed to learn financial responsibility. I gathered up my bank statements and headed toward the door. "Have a wonderful Thanksgiving," I told them. "I will be just fine on my own." As I reached for the door handle, Stephanie called out desperately, "Wait, what about the heating bill? It is due next week and winter is coming. Ask your husband," I replied without turning around. "Or maybe Mom's Social Security can cover it. You all seem very confident in your ability to handle these expenses without my help." That was exactly 1 week before Thanksgiving. On Thanksgiving night, while I sat in my apartment eating Chinese takeout and watching movies, my phone started ringing. First Kevin called, then Mom, then Kevin again. I did not answer any of them. But at 11:30 that night, Stephanie called and something in her voice made me pick up. "Lauren, please," she said. And I could tell she had been crying. "The electricity is going to be shut off tomorrow if we do not pay by 8 a.m. The gas bill is overdue too. The kids will be cold and Emma is already getting sick again. You cannot do this to innocent children. So now you admit that I was paying for everything I asked." There was a long silence before she whispered, "Yes." The next 3 months were the hardest of my life, but also the most transformative. That first Thanksgiving alone was brutal. I had ordered Chinese food and tried to convince myself I was fine, but I spent most of the day crying and questioning whether I had made the right decision. Was I really so selfish that I would let children be cold just to prove a point about my hurt feelings? I called a therapist the following Monday. Dr. Rodriguez helped me understand that what I was experiencing was not just family drama, but a pattern of enabling behavior that had been unhealthy for everyone involved. She introduced me to concepts about codependency and boundary setting that I had never considered. You have been functioning as the family's financial parent while being treated like a difficult child, she explained during one of our sessions. By constantly rescuing them from consequences, you prevented them from learning to solve their own problems. I started using the $566 I had been spending monthly on their bills for my own life instead. I increased my retirement contributions, started a vacation fund, and for the first time in years, I bought groceries without checking my bank balance first. I joined a hiking club and started taking weekend trips to the Oregon coast. I remembered what it felt like to have my own money for my own priorities. Meanwhile, reality was hitting my family hard. Kevin was forced to find full-time employment, something he probably should have done years earlier. He got a job at a warehouse that paid decent wages with benefits, but required him to work early shifts and weekends. Stephanie had to start working part-time at a local daycare center, which ironically gave her more empathy for working parents and financial stress. Mom had to carefully budget her Social Security check and accept that some luxuries like premium cable packages were not affordable on a fixed income. The family learned to live within their actual means rather than the inflated lifestyle my subsidies had allowed. 4 months after our Thanksgiving confrontation, Mom called me on a Sunday afternoon. Her voice was humble in a way I had never heard before. "Lauren, I owe you an apology," she said. "I did not realize how much you had been doing for our family. And I should have believed you when you told me about the bills. I was wrong to take Stephanie's word without asking questions." She went on to explain that once they had to manage the bills themselves, she saw exactly how much everything cost and realized the scope of my previous contributions. Stephanie had been forced to confess the full extent of her deception when the numbers simply did not add up. A few weeks later, Stephanie called with her own apology. This one was harder for me to accept because it had taken financial desperation to motivate it, but I could hear genuine remorse in her voice. I was embarrassed that my little sister was taking care of all of us, she admitted. I wanted people to think I had everything under control as a wife and mother. I convinced myself that since you made more money, it did not really matter who got credit for paying bills. But I realized she was being honest when she said, "I know now that what I did was stealing Lauren. I stole your money and I stole credit for your generosity. I do not know if you can forgive me, but I want to try to earn back your trust." The conversation where we established new boundaries was difficult but necessary. I agreed to attend family dinners again, but made it clear that I would not be providing financial support, except for specific occasions like birthday gifts for the children. Any future financial help would be a loan with written terms, not an endless subsidy. Stephanie and Kevin needed to contribute equally to household expenses if they wanted to continue living with Mom. Mom's Social Security would cover her personal expenses and a portion of utilities, but the working adults needed to carry the majority of the financial responsibility. Most importantly, everyone needed to be honest about money. No more pretending about who was paying for what, no more taking credit for others' contributions, and no more expecting me to be the family's financial safety net while being excluded from family decisions. That next Thanksgiving was completely different. I was officially invited, and the invitation came with genuine enthusiasm rather than obligation. Stephanie had planned and cooked the entire dinner herself, and she was proud of her newfound independence. Kevin brought an expensive bottle of wine purchased with money from his full-time salary. Emma and Michael were excited to see me, and their excitement felt genuine rather than motivated by gifts or guilt. Mom pulled me aside before dinner and said something I will never forget. This family is stronger now because everyone is contributing instead of just you carrying all of us. I am proud of the woman you are, and I'm sorry it took losing you to realize how much we had taken you for granted. During dinner, as I looked around the table at my family, I realized that my decision to cut off financial support had not destroyed our relationships. It had actually saved them. Stephanie was more confident and self-reliant. Kevin had found purpose and pride in providing for his family. Mom had learned to appreciate what she had instead of taking it for granted. And I had learned that love without boundaries is not love at all. It is enabling. The most important lesson I learned through this experience was that sometimes the most generous thing you can do is stop giving. When you constantly rescue people from the consequences of their choices, you rob them of the opportunity to grow and learn. I thought I was keeping my family together, but I was actually keeping them dependent. That $10,200 was not just money, it was my self-respect, my financial security, and my emotional well-being. When you give without boundaries, you teach people to take without gratitude. Sometimes the people who love you most need to learn to love themselves first, and sometimes the most loving thing you can do is step back and let them figure it out. And sometimes the most generous thing you can do is stop giving. What about you? Have you ever found yourself in a situation where your generosity was taken for granted? Have you had to set difficult boundaries with family members who expected your support? Let me know in the comments below what you would have done in my situation. If this story resonated with you, please hit that like button and subscribe for more real-life stories about family relationships and learning to value yourself. Share this video with someone who might need to hear that it is okay to say no, even to family. Thank you for listening to my story, and remember that you deserve relationships where your contributions are valued and your presence is genuinely wanted. Take care of yourselves out there.